I was really ready to get on here today after the second semifinal and just rip this next generation a new one today. To an extent, that still might end up happening. The direction of this video is unclear even to me at this moment, but I have rationalized my reactions a bit more since the conclusion of that match. But I mean, sheesh. I guess in the big picture, my predictions were each a set off, but I honestly feel I was closer in the Djokovic prediction because I actually foresaw a really competitive match there in both these semis, and despite Hurkacz turning it on for about a set in the third, Berrettini really never felt like he was in that much danger. He regrouped nicely after dropping the third, broke immediately in the first game of the fourth, and was in control from that point. But Shapovalov Djokovic, which is the main thing I want to talk about in this video today, that match had no business being a straight set win. And you say this so many times about Djokovic, especially I feel as of late. So many times you feel like he wins without his best stuff. So many times you feel he's being outplayed, and then the scoreboard reflects something totally different. And it's something that you come to expect from him. It's the reason why I felt that French Open final was never going to be done in my eyes until I actually heard game, set, and match Tsitsipas. I wasn't about to be fooled into thinking that match was over. The last time I did that, he came back 2-1 down against Dominic Thiem in Australia, and after that, I was just like, yeah, it's so hard to trust these younger guys come closing time, especially against all-time greats. I knew all of this, and you know what? In spite of that, with the way most of that first set went, I actually was believing that Denis Shapovalov could pull off this upset. I literally allowed thoughts to come into my mind that I was like, Denis is 22. Roger Federer was, I think 22 also when he broke through at Wimbledon. Maybe something like this could be the catalyst for Denis to get it going. And I've rarely ever allowed myself to start thinking ahead like that when watching these matches, especially when Djokovic is concerned. But Novak came out flat, and Denis was about as sharp as he could be. You saw Djokovic struggling after the first service game of the match, really, that was on the Shapovalov serve. He was totally unable to get his teeth into any of Denis's service games, and the way that set just breezed on to 5-4, it seemed that set at least was Shapovalov's to win or lose. But when that 5-4 game happened, and when that miss happened at 30-all, we all know the one I'm talking about, where he stretched Djokovic wide, far off court, and really just had to put the ball in play, and he would have won the point. He went for way more than he needed to, and he ended up hitting that ball well long, and you felt the shift at that moment. It's what Djokovic does, just putting one more ball in play, refusing to miss and give up those cheap points when it comes to his opponents trying to close him out. And though Shapovalov was not demoralized at any point in this match, even after that miss, you just felt that Djokovic was going to find his way back into the set. And once that first set went, it's just such an uphill battle, as I've repeatedly stated with Novak Djokovic in these big matches, and pretty much any match. When you go down a set, it's just nearly an insurmountable lead against the guy. But no matter, Shapovalov regrouped nicely in the second. His serve games was more of the same for most of the first set. Djokovic just unable to really get a read on it, and minimal rallies really happening on the Shapovalov serve. And meanwhile, he was creating opportunity after opportunity One game, love 40. The very next Djokovic Serve game, he had a 15-40. And the one thing Djokovic did at a great level today was serve really well. A few more double faults than you maybe would have liked, but aside from that, when his first serve was landing in, and it was doing so at a reasonably good clip, he was dominating. And he did find some great first serves down in those return games and throughout the match when he was under pressure, but also some very, very untimely errors by Denis Shapovalov. We know over the last year how far Denis has come as far as maturing and improving in that shot selection department, but that being said, there is still a long ways to go in that department for it to be ideal. He still pulls the trigger on some shots that are just very, very ill-advised, and that really did bite him this match in the big moments. And when he wasn't able to convert on any of those chances throughout the second set, you knew he'd let Djokovic hang around too long, and Novak wasn't going to need a second invitation. Got the break at 5-all with a couple of loose Shapovalov second serves. I'm pretty sure he had multiple double faults, but I know for sure it was at least one. And through 2 sets, Shapovalov had lost just 3 fewer points. And up until that 6-5 game where Djokovic held to love, he'd actually won one more point for the match and found himself down eventually 2 sets, but at that point a set in 6-5. And Novak himself made note of the fact that he felt that he was outplayed for the better part of 2 sets. But it just didn't matter, like, as of late, there's nobody better in these clutch moments. Rafa Nadal, I felt, used to be on that level when he was in his prime still, but really ever since 2015, Nadal has dropped off significantly as far as the clutch department, and really ever since, Djokovic has been unparalleled in that department. And his ability to continually blunt someone playing their best tennis, even when he doesn't have it himself, it can largely be chalked up to the mental side of the game, where he's pretty much mastered his own nerves, and he pretty much never lets his head be what lets him down in these matches that he occasionally and very sparingly comes out on the losing end of. And that ability has really been what has been the difference in him picking up a few more slams late in his career, despite oftentimes not having his best, certainly more often than what was the case in his prime. And let me say this, Novak Djokovic very well may win 4 majors this year, but I would still say without hesitation, because I was there, I know what I saw back then, I will always still remember 2011, 2015 Novak Djokovic as better players than this one. I would say significantly better versions of him on pretty much any court, but the mental side of things matter a lot, and they're still what puts Djokovic and Nadal, but especially Djokovic, miles ahead of the next gen that are gunning for him. There's still a sense of security there because they can't really outlast him the way they can Nadal now. And it really is growing tiring for me to continually see this story play out time after time after time. And it's not just against Djokovic, it's pretty much any Big Three member. You see these guys have them backed into a corner. You see these guys have them there for the taking pretty much. But when closing time comes, you see them get so damn scared to just finish the job. The instances of this happening have really piled up ever since 2017. And it's not as bad a look on Shapovalov because at least he can fall back on this is the first time he's really ever been on a stage that big and has never really experienced the rigors of closing time on that big a stage with so much on the line. But I just feel that if you were the next all-time great and if you had that it factor in you that would make you that next all-time great, at least one of these guys on a big stage would step up to the plate and just some way, somehow get it done. I may be unfair in the fact that I grew up seeing the big three younger. I mean, they weren't like the baby versions of themselves when I started watching tennis in like 2010, 2011-ish. But Nadal and Djokovic back then were around the same age that a lot of these guys we're talking about now are. And it goes without saying that they were far superior at that time. I'm not expecting you to be either of those guys at like age 24 that they were. These guys are the three greatest players of all time. I doubt you're ever going to see someone like them again. But my issue is just that rarely have these guys been more vulnerable in any stage of their career than they are now. They're all... Federer's way past his prime and way past even 35, but Nadal and Djokovic, as they've approached 35, have shown clear cracks. And you see sets like today in the first two where Shapovalov plays about as well as he can, and his all-time great opponent in Djokovic, without exaggeration, is around like 60% of his best self. And it's just so concerning that despite outplaying him for much of that span, he's down 2-0. And you've seen that over and over again. A lot of these next-gen players have the game in order to beat these older, lesser versions of the big three. Probably still not peak to peak even for these older versions of them, but those off days do come more often. You're going to get them on days where they're more vulnerable way more often than you used to, and most of the times they still cannot, those legends. And oftentimes it's like Nadal and Djokovic just know there's a choke around the corner. It's not even like they will step up their games like they used to. They pretty much just sit back, put the ball back in court as much as they can, and that's usually good enough. I get that a tough loss like this from a lot of winning positions can often be a catalyst. Hell, look at Djokovic when he was just 20 and lost to Federer in his first Slam final in 07. 6-5, 40 love, unable to close the deal. Set points in the second set as well. Could have been up 2-0 there and ended up losing in straights, as Shapovalov did today. He would go on to beat Roger Federer in Australia a couple months later and take his first Slam there in 08. But the concern with the intangibles in the next generation right now is that they're not learning. You literally can feel these collapses coming. You can feel when these critical double faults are going to happen before they actually happen. A lot of the times when they'll get to these positions where they're serving out sets, serving out matches, or have sets or matches on their rackets against these all-time greats, you're honestly more surprised if they're able to get across the finish line than if they fail to close that deal. And therein really lies the problem. You look at these numbers and you see that over the past couple years, the big three seem as dominant as ever. And you see the narrative that these guys are better than ever. They've gotten better with age being thrown around. And anyone who was lucky enough to get to watch these guys back in the day when they were still in their primes, the eye test will simply tell you otherwise. You don't even have to go into the numbers. The simple eye test will tell you otherwise. But you still have seen them post massive numbers in slams since 2017. And yes, being the 3 greatest players who ever played this game certainly plays a massive part in being able to still continue that dominance late into your career. But that reputation has also been the sole thing on a few too many occasions for my liking that has gotten them over the line over their younger competition when they haven't been at their best. I honestly feel that ever since like 2017 when Federer and Nadal both came back and then Djokovic took one more year to recover from his elbow injury and just a tough spell for him. Since then, I really feel that all 3 of them are pretty much just inflating their resumes, and, can't really blame them for that. But you can basically count on one hand how many times in those years that they've played what you'd consider to be an all-time great level relative to their primes. I can literally off the top of my head give the 2 definitive times that's been the case for Rafa. That would be Roland Garros 2017 and Wimbledon 2018. That is it. For Djokovic, probably Aussie Open 2019, maybe parts of Wimbledon 2018. Oh yeah, and parts of this year's French Open. And for Fed, Indian Wells 2017, and maybe some spurts from Aussie Open 2017 for him. But at the end of the day, it just hasn't mattered with all the intangibles taken into account, with what's between the ears being taken into account. And this is just the latest example of it. All credit to Novak Djokovic, regardless of how I feel about his level this tournament. It's easy to be numbed seeing these guys time after time just not stumbling with some of these danger matches along the way and rarely ever losing a match they're favored in. And at the moment, Djokovic is second to none in that category. In fact, he's second to none in pretty much every category at the moment. I have been harsh on the next generation in this video, but I do want to say still a great result for Denis Shapovalov. Once you get to this level, it is sort of nitpicking, especially considering it wasn't the moment that overwhelmed Denis today. He came out and played well on the big stage, as he always has. And you do hope this is a launch pad for things to come, because honestly, I feel that Shapo has the most raw ability out of anybody in that 25 and under group I still consider to be next gen. He's a joy to watch, probably the most aesthetically pleasing of that group as well. It was a great week for him. Took a lot of steps forward, and you hope it's a sign of things to come for him. As far as the final now on Sunday, I am happy to say that it is the final matchup I predicted at the beginning of the tournament. And yet again, as I felt heading into the second semifinal with Djokovic Shapovalov, I also feel that Berrettini was one of the few players that could give Djokovic a real match here. Berrettini handled the occasion today phenomenally, played an awesome match, served great as he has this whole tournament, like 22 aces, 1 double. That's insane given how quick Berrettini's second serves are. And just theoretically, given Berrettini did play him very well in the 3rd and 4th sets at Roland Garros, theoretically you would think he could do even better here with Djokovic not playing as well as he was in Paris. I've said all tournament I don't feel that Djokovic has been anywhere near his best. I would say he's been like a B minus at best through this tournament on his way to the final. And oftentimes he's been worse than that. But of course he hasn't really needed it. And he did get significantly better in the 3rd set. Probably played his best set of the tournament today in that 3rd set. So you could very well see him continue on that track and carry over what he showed in the 3rd set into the final. The way I see it, there's 2 ways that this match on Sunday can go, and it's all too familiar. The first being that Djokovic continues to be sharp as he was in the third set, and Berrettini is overwhelmed by the moment and ends up throwing in a dud out of nowhere, a la Medvedev at this year's Aussie Open final. Or Berrettini plays great, Djokovic continues on that B level, Berrettini having his chances but ultimately failing to take them, and Djokovic overcoming him in a tough, tight 4 or 5 sets, a la 2020 Aussie Open and 2021 Roland Garros finals. It very well may end up being something in between, but I feel that those are the 2 most likely outcomes here. Berrettini certainly has the capability to win. He could win, but he won't win. And I said that prior to each of the last 2 slam finals we've had, because until I actually see one of these next-gen players beat one of these legends in a slam final, I'm never going to pick against the Big 3 member in this spot. I said that in my video after the Aussie Open final this year, and I stand by that now more than ever. Probably a more gloomy tone to this video than you would have expected today. In my opinion, we probably got the best Wimbledon finals matchup we could have asked for this year. So looking forward to final Sunday, obviously, but beyond that, I am really looking forward to the North American hardcourt season this year. It obviously helps that now I know that Rafa will be back earlier than expected in DC this year. Really excited for his return, and beyond that, it is my favorite time of the tennis calendar. Yes, I am a rare Nadal fan whose favorite time of the year is not clay season, and whose favorite slam is not the French Open. And growing up about 10 minutes away from the Western and Southern Open, and attending that tournament since I was 8 years old, that'll have that type of effect on you. Of course, still a little under a month to go there, and Olympics before it, and with Djokovic likely having 3 legs up on his calendar Grand Slam this year, a bunch of great storylines carrying over into the second half of this tennis season. But first things first, we will be seeing history regardless of the winner this Sunday. Hope for a great match there, but that will do it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, it would be much appreciated if you would like the video and subscribe if you weren't already. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it, and of course, I will see you all in the next one.